All right, welcome to part 2 of the Classical Republicans book review of Philip Pettit's Republicanism. All right, in part 2, he gets into more concrete policy ideas, so he intentionally remains very vague because classical republicanism is pragmatic and it depends on the situation. In explaining this, he feels his audience is made up of classical and neoliberals. So, knowing that and the fact that he's writing in 1997, it makes sense that he uses the following terms for categories. So, environmentalism, he's really talking about conservation and keeping things safe for people. He uses the term feminism, but really he's talking about women's rights. He uses the term socialism, but he's really just talking about workers' rights. And that was probably the most surprising. But thinking back to 1997, maybe that was socialism in 1997. I don't know. And multiculturalism, he's really talking about minority rights. I think that's what we would call them today. But what he is doing here is showing more specific ways to promote non-domination. But then he goes on to talk about 5 broad areas of policy making. First is external defense. And this has to do with defense and foreign policy. Here we see the virtue of moderation throughout this section. You need to have a military that is not too large, so it is not a burden on taxpayers, but not too small, so that the state is not dominated by others, other powers. Also, citizen militias, civilian control, and separation of powers are ideal. In diplomacy, it is good to have international organizations to lighten the need for a large military. So, international organizations are good and desirable, but not at the cost of too much sovereignty. He recognizes that a little bit of sovereignty will be given up, but there should be benefits for that. The next section is internal protection, and this has to do with the justice system. I'm going to read a little part here on page 156, and he talks about these 3 R's of Republican sentencing. Let's see. It said it should seek to elicit recognition by the offender of the status of the victim as non-dominated and free. Recompense, restitution, compensation, or at least reparation from the offender for the harm done to the victim and or the victim's family. And third, a reassurance for the victim and the community at large that the offender will not continue to be the threat that they proved to be in committing the crime. Okay, so a lot of talk over the last few years of criminal justice reform, and so there's something that we should be thinking about. The next section was personal independence, and here he's talking mostly about the welfare of the people. This has to do with basic capabilities, education, and basic capabilities is going to be different depending on where you are. There are just different standards in different societies. Education, work and leisure, and it has to do with socioeconomic independence. He recognizes that civil society should take the lead, but where civil society is lacking, the state must step in. He points out that state welfare, if done incorrectly, the state will end up in a dominating position, and that needs to be avoided. At the end of the section, he does remind us that in extreme cases, there is the redistributive proposal in the classical Republican tradition to draw from. We see examples with the Spartans and with James Harrington in his proposal in the Commonwealth of Oceania. And one could argue that we saw something like this in Venice during the Italian wars, but that had more to do with the war effort. So when the existence of the existence of the Republic was on the line. So the Venetian government did institute some extreme measures, mostly taxation. I think some conscription also. Economic prosperity is the next section, and let me turn to page 163. In 163, he says it best, under economic prosperity, the Republican state will concern itself with matters of economic prosperity to the extent that it can thereby lessen the prospects of domination, raise the intensity of non-domination enjoyed in the society, or improve the range or ease of undominated choice, that is, increase the extent of non-domination in the society. Both goals provide reasons for economic interventions. All right. I think that says it all. Then in public life, this is the last section in this chapter. This is a big topic that includes public or common knowledge, also the media and public spaces, and also how to find public opinion. Like, you have to have an understood method of finding accurate public opinion, and that can change over time and in different places. So that's something serious. And I think that, he wrote this in 1997. I think that's something very important today. So I think this is as concrete as he's gonna get for now. But we still have 2 more chapters, and so that's why I spent so much time on that. In the last 2 chapters, he rounds out the principles for implementing non-domination, the mixed regime, and civil society, which includes counter-majoritarianism. So this book has done so much for the spread of our message of classical republicanism. So please like, subscribe, share, so we can oppose domination and uphold the mixed regime. Until next time, long live the Republic.